Okay guys, let's start. Designing wholesome AI interfaces. So initially it was called better AI interfaces, but I thought better was a very subjective word, not very clear, and I wanted to really zoom in on what I mean by better. Before I start the talk, I just lay some groundwork for who am I, why do I want to give this talk, what am I asking for, what am I trying to achieve by giving this talk, that kind of context setting. So this presentation will be hopefully like very slow. We'll go one slide by slide and try to carry all of you with me. So at any point, if you feel like I'm being left behind, like these guys are going on some journey that I'm not a part of, try to stop me, ask me questions, and like we will try to, because it's work for me to try and explain it in words that are very accessible, not using jargon and everything like that. So feel free to call out any word you don't understand and be like, what do you exactly mean by this word wholesome? It's not very often used in this kind of context. So that's the first thing, so ask questions. Second thing would be like, a kind of a bit brief intro to who I am and my journey so far. I was doing my PhD here in the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, in the Department of Computational Data Science around 4 or 5 years ago, when I started really getting concerned about existential risks from AI. So there's a community of people online who are like really worried about what's going to happen if this keeps going on, if AI gets really bad, really smart. Do we have any sense of being able to protect ourselves, make sure it's actually aligned with our values? And that is what happened a few years ago when I started going down the rabbit hole of asking these deep questions like, how can we ensure that we have a good relationship with this technology? And the recent, I'm seeing a lot of my ups and downs, but currently I feel like this is the best bet we have. I don't think enough people are really taking this seriously. So I'm working with an organization called Groundless, where we are having events where we design these interfaces as a group. We also try to critique existing interfaces for their problems. We have a cohort we run like last 2 years where people come and build interfaces technically. And so part of this goal of this sort of a presentation is for you guys to realize that, hey, I can also now start participating in building interfaces. Before, you need to know coding, like not everyone can build their own app. But now with vibe coding and these kinds of new technologies, you just talk to ChatGPT and ask them what you want and they can build something for you. And that's kind of like mind blowing, because instead of using some Google Chrome or like some sort of app that's built for everyone, you can now make a personalized application that only you can use. It's a soloware or software only for you, and that is opening up the possibility for you to notice in what areas am I feeling like I'm kind of settling. This UI UX sucks, but what do? I have to use what everyone uses. I can't make my own Google Meet. I have to use Google Meet or Teams or whatever. So the goal kind of here is for you guys to think about, does this make sense? Is RJ saying, is it possible? Is it required? What is the big deal? What's fine? It's fine if I have some small frictions. I don't like how the color is. I don't like how the buttons are. Is it a big deal? Am I making a big deal out of this whole nonsense? So that's one question about how important interfaces are. And can you now involve, and does it even matter to your life? And of course, the bigger question of suffering risks that I think some people are talking about. Is doing all of this going to really affect the big questions about when AI becomes super intelligent or really powerful? Does it really affect that question? So those are the 2-3 things I want to talk about. And the reason I care about it is because I work with this organization and I'm trying to communicate this thing again and again in a way that is accessible. Because it's in a very small bubble of people talk about metaphysics and use words like ontology and like philosophy stuff. And then in that bubble, everyone talks to each other, and outside the bubble, people aren't getting to know this. So my goal is to try and make it more accessible through videos and through these kind of conversations. So you'll be doing a lot of work for me by asking me questions and holding me accountable, because you can kind of fool yourself if you believe in your own idea. So you have to run experiments with reality, build stuff, show things to people, make sure that you're empirically grounded. So that is kind of the context for this talk. Any questions so far? Is this speed fine? Good? Yes.
Yes, let's go.
Let's go. Okay. High energy.
Soloware is a very nice word.
Soloware is a great word. Yeah. You can just put comments like that too. That's great. Thank you. Like the group energy can go up. So Solo well. So yeah, so now we'll start with interfaces. This word is like not obviously clear what it means, right? Like I don't know how many of you have heard the word interfaces before and feel like you intuitively know it. So when I say you know the word, I mean like some words when you use it, right? Like water. We all have formed a friendship with that word. Like when I say water, I know what I'm talking about. Because I've drunk water, I've touched water, I know how it feels, I know what it gives me. It's not like a abstract idea, it's water. Or my left hand is something real. But if we talk about something like, I don't know, capitalism or something like that, maybe some people have actually gone through poverty and have experienced that the feeling of money controlling the incentives might be able to say, I know what capitalism is. I've lived in America, I've lived in India, I know the difference between. So these words, some of the words only through lived experience can you form a friendship with that word. Then you can use the word knowing what it means. It's not like trying to do some status signaling by just throwing the word out. So I also want to ask, like, so if you guys had to like talk about interfaces, could you guys, any of you want to try explaining it to me? Like, what is interface? What is interface? What is not interface? Any of us?
Interface, user interface.
So user interface.
Like the screen on which we interact, like that, like the one which is there when we see an app or something.
Exactly. That's a great answer, right? Because when you open up an app like Google Meet, the interface is basically there's this big screen. You can see the other person. There's buttons like ending call. There's a 3-button dot button for starting recording. There's options. So Google Meet, the creators of Google Meet, have decided what affordances to give you. So when I use the word affordance, I'm talking about what are the ways in which you can make an action. You can be like, oh, if I want to end the call, this big red button, clearly visible there, easy to click. That is one choice that the designers have made when designing their user interface. And they've also made it very hard to record the call in some sense because they made it 3 clicks. You'll first click on 3 dots. You click on the tick box saying, yes, I want to get transcription and I want this. And then click start recording. Then the pop-up will come asking, are you guys sure? Has all the participants agreed? You click agree, and then the recording starts. So it's like the friction has been made. So a lot of the user design UI people when they design Amazon, it's like single buy. Click one button and the thing is purchased. So a lot of people spend a lot of time thinking about designing interfaces where the company thinks about its incentives. The idea is like, oh yeah, I want people to purchase things quickly. I don't want them to worry too much and think, do I really want to buy this? No, that's not useful. So the key thing about interfaces, the very clear answer would be like, it's how you behave and interact with that underlying behind Amazon is like this huge company, has a lot of employees doing a lot of amazing things. But you deal with Amazon through an interface. So that is an interface.
Yeah, I think any sort of complexity. I think interface can be physical also. Like a car, driving controls in a car are an interface, right?
Perfect.
Manual versus automatic. Different sort of interfaces for different. A door handle is an interface for.
The chair is an interface. Like this chair is actually deciding how he sits. His posture, our postures. If you sit on a cushion, you sit on a chair. All of those things affect what orientations and configurations you feel easily. Be like, okay, I'm not gonna sit with that. Like sitting like that on a chair is harder. So by default, you will sit like this on the chair. So notice how in physical world the interfaces decide a lot of your natural tendencies towards how you behave in something. Like you're just going naturally being like, oh yeah, this should be picked up like this. It's intuitive. It's natural. So physical interfaces like chairs and handles and car driving, steer wheels, gearbox, all interfaces. So now anything more abstract?
Everything is an interface, but it depends upon what it's relating to what.
Perfect. Yeah. So now it's like even more abstract now. So we started something very concrete, and now what is it your name?
Ashwin.
Ashwin. Yeah. Like Ashwin said, everything is an interface. It all depends on what are the two things that are interfacing between. So in some sense, language is interface, culture is interface. So those are very hard to imagine, but the rules by which you talk to someone, right? Like English language is already making me talk to you guys using certain words that I'm picking out from English, right? Like it already asserts a certain structure. I'm saying subject object, like I'm saying I am saying, I am doing something. All those implicitly, and like there's so much things I could be doing. I could be gesturing with you, I could be saying things in Malayalam, my native tongue. But the choice of the language controls what type of words I say. Because if I have feeling something like, I want to say how angry I am. In English, I might choose certain ways of putting words together. In Malayalam, I use a different set of words. And those two will have totally different meanings. But because I'm talking in English and speaking in English, the interface, that is the language, affects what I say. And the culture, which is being grown up in India, like I have all these norms around how I should stand, how I should wear, or I should be polite to someone. All these are cultural norms, cultural ideas that control and regulate and the constraints that affect utility. So my point here between intimacy and utility is that notice how interfaces are often a way for you to extract value from something. Like you want to now use Amazon, you want to now talk to someone, and if you just let everything happen, you just let intimacy happen completely, just meeting something without thinking about shaping it for utility, the interface is how you bridge the gap between these two competing sort of requirements. When I say the word intimacy, I'm talking about it in terms of staying in true communion or communicating with something, right? Like appreciating something's aesthetic preferences. Like you're like, oh, I like this rock, I like this person. When you're really friends with someone, you're not thinking about interfacing with them from a perspective of, okay, I have some constraints and some affordances. It's a lot more raw and real, and like you're free. You're not having some outcome oriented thinking. And this is a little bit, like, kind of moving a little bit fast, I feel. But let's slow down and ask questions again. Okay, how many, do you guys have any interfaces in mind where you have felt like this thing happened? Or does it resonate with you?
Like one example that's coming to my mind is like with intimacy, right? Like talking to a customer support person on the phone versus like you know, a bot or something.
Right.
Like when you know that it's just like automated thing.
It's just a machine talking to you. That feels a lot less intimate. It's very, the customer care service that you talk to, they're just trying to get utility out of it. Like just trying to get you to give the feedback or whatever, and there's no one actually listening to you. You don't feel like there's some numbness to how that conversation is going on. That's a great example.
Another one that is language, right? Like when I was first like getting comfortable with English, like English was not allowing for the intimacy thing which I had growing up with Hindi, right?
Mm.
So Hindi interface was allowing me to connect with people at a deeper level, which English didn't allow for in the beginning. And would that qualify as that?
Yeah, I think it definitely qualifies it because different languages have different reasons why, like they grew up in, we think of languages as have been organically grown up in a geographical context, right? In a certain historical, socio-economic context as well as languages were born. So maybe our older languages tend to be much more tribal and social, collectivist communities. So those languages feel a lot more loving, and we all multilingual people in India, we have experience with talking in our mother tongue and feeling like, oh yeah, there's a connection here. It feels more raw and real and more touching the truth. But whereas the more you go into talking in mathematics, talking in like English seems a little bit more higher level in some sense, where you can talk about abstract ideas, but you're losing touch of the person you're talking to. Like I'm looking away when talking to people. I'm not looking into the person's eyes. You're actually like, oh, I'm talking about these ideas here, somewhere else. So I think that also explains it. But yeah, I just wanted to point to this thing because just to get an idea or understand what interfaces are, it can be very abstract, but specifically we want to interface with AI. So as long as you guys feel like you kind of have a good idea of what interfaces are, I think that's enough for this slide. It doesn't have to be all the way to metaphysics. But the main thing I wanted to convey here is that there is a tendency by which current systems, we are designing the interfaces to maximally look for utility. And there's not enough of the intimacy aspect. And we should bridge both, because it can completely be like intimacy, there's no need for interface. You can just be like no interface required, or just vibe, just sit in that ocean and like relax, don't think too much. That kind of a thing I feel comes in. So there is a tension here I'm identifying. So how any of you guys feel like you wanna ask any questions about interfaces so far?
I mean, at least at the level that we're talking, right? Like we're generalizing so much that even the split between the two of them it's a little flimsy. But yeah.
But
I mean, of course, at a practical level, they're completely different things. But yeah.
This is a great point. Any boundary you put, any dichotomy you use, any sort of like, oh, say A versus B, will look like a false dichotomy because these things are very much intertwined, interdependent. Like nothing can arise with the other thing. Like, you can't be like only utility or only intimacy. Everything in reality seems to have connections with each other. So that's also very useful.
How are we addressing the interface when the utility itself is the intimacy?
So it's when you say it is the intimacy, what do you mean? Can you give me an example of that?
So if we are looking at people who think the AI are the trends and like having the where we started using AI to write emails for us and everything, and now slowly we are replacing our social connections with that is one of the existential risks
Yeah.
that you're looking at. So there, the intimacy, the utility of that AI is the intimacy it is providing. So how do we?
Yeah, so I think when I say intimacy, I'm talking about like real. When I say real intimacy, I'm saying that okay, these AI systems are masquerading. They don't have bodies. They don't have empathy. Like we grew up as mammals with shared biochemistry, where I have mirror neurons that fire when you suffer. So when I listen to you and I say, yes, I'm so sorry you had to go through that, there's a sense in which I really mean it. There's sincerity here. There's authenticity here. And an AI doesn't really have all of those human emotions, but it still can masquerade and be like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I really feel for you. I validate your emotions. So that is a fake intimacy which we should not conflate with this real intimacy. So that would be more of utility than intimacy because people want to buy it. They want to pay for AI. They want to purchase. They want to make everything transactional, right? So that's the distinction between intimacy and utility in that sense. Does that make sense, or you still feel it'll come up again? I think, but
Okay.
okay, it's a good question though. It's a very real issue that we are facing.
I feel like there can be other dimensions to
Yeah.
this, like intimacy versus utility versus like
Because it can be-
practicality, some other things.
Yeah, communion could be another word, or to commune. Many other aspects, but okay, interfaces. So, but about interfaces, it makes sense. Everyone is on the.
Interfaces, yes.
That's
There are
right.
like two POVs as well, like intimacy and utility from the end consumer POV and from the model provider's point of view. So to them, the intimacy that their model is trained to provide to the customers could be their utility. But there may be a disconnect between what the customer was expecting, because if they fulfill that, then the revenue potentially goes down.
So the question is, whose utility are we talking
Yes,
about? And
from
like,
whose perspective is this utility and intimacy balance?
So when I'm saying utility, I'm talking from the like if you are the one using the interface, it should be your utility.
Okay.
Just because I'm designing the interface doesn't mean that I get to choose who like if of course I can create extractive value where I'm creating addictive Instagram reels. That interface is designed with dark patterns to keep you hooked to the platform, and that will be my utility. I'll be like, yeah, I don't care about your well-being, your thriving, your health doesn't matter to me. I care about my utility, and I'm maximizing my utility. It's working very well for me. So, but when we design, when you are solo where you're creating your own interface, you recognize, I want to use Instagram, I don't want to be a Luddite, I don't want to run into my village and be like, escape from all of this because it will come to me. Eventually, I can't run away forever. So there is an aspect of utility that you have to now be like, how can I create a interface only for me so I can actually learn about AI, I can learn maths, but I don't want to get into body dysmorphia and feel like I'm ugly. So you can understand where your own pressure points are and carefully curate the interface for yourself. So that would be a difference where I would definitely put the consumer who of the interface as the person who gets to say utility, and the issues and incentives misalign and you are having the person creating the interface and the person using the interface not actually on the same page. So it's adversarial.
Slight divergence actually building off of this. Is it okay like just one?
I think time wise, are we fine?
I mean, we have 1.5 hours.
Okay, we have time. Okay.
Or just very quick show hands. What are like in most cases, I think the utility is actually aligned, like both between consumers and with like the makers of the thing. But in those set of situations where it's not aligned, where do you feel the design actually skews towards? Like, does it go towards the people making the design, or does it go towards the actual consumer? I just wanted to get like a sense of what everybody feels.
I think edge cases at the moment it's inclined or it's biased towards the model providers. So for example,
Yeah.
the recent cases with OAI's model being pressuring a team to commit suicide or like helping them get tips to commit suicide, so things like that. So these models are now in a way they are currently improving the model so that they do not have these tendencies to further push people who are already on the edge of doing something to themselves or to others. And another aspect of this is, for example, Grok. It has this tendency to like sexualize everything and steer all conversations into a flirtatious. Yeah, so those things can be tuned down, but Grok wouldn't do that because that would hurt their revenue. Because there, the fake intimacy that it is providing maximizes the utility function of whatever it is that the Grok model provider is aiming for, or the shareholder values, whatever it may be.
And the reason I was asking this is I think it explains very well why Amazon's delivery is so good but their customer service is so bad. because the delivery is like a revenue center for them, whereas customer service is like they will
Loss
put.
making.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, you can look at the practicalities and decide a lot of these things. But we do have a lot of slides to go through, and we haven't even reached the. Hi, welcome guys. Have a seat. So we're lucky because we only finished like 2 slides so far. I'll just give like a quick catch up if you guys want. Do you want to introduce yourself or it's fine? Let's continue. Okay, so I just basically talked about, just to summarize so far what I talked about this. Feel free to interrupt me at any point in the conversation, ask questions. I talked about what interfaces are. Interfaces can basically are a set of constraints and affordances. When I say constraints, it kind of hides things and makes you be like, okay, you don't have to think about these aspects, focus on these aspects. So a chair's interface insofar as it just provides you a natural way to sit down. When you're using your app for scrolling, Instagram tells you, yeah, you can click on this button and say, I don't like this video and tune the algorithm. But it's very hard to do that. So the interface makes it very easy to go next. If you don't like something, just go next. And your thumb learns how to do that very easily. So interfaces are the choices that UI UX designers make when creating the way in which they offer their value. They're like, yeah, we have this algorithm, we have Amazon delivery setup. How do you make purchases? What are the ways in which you can click buy? What are the ways in which you can say no? What are the options available to you? Because you don't want to think too much. You want to easily just click some buttons or make some gestures and get what you want. So that's what interfaces are. I think we talked a bunch about that. Now we're going to go to the next slide, unless last call for questions. Good. Okay, so now we're talking about wholesome. And I use this word wholesome very intentionally. So when I say better interfaces, people have different views. We talk about utility, we talk about intimacy as one aspect of interfaces. But I think the most important aspect of interface, at least the one that my org is focused on, and we think will actually tackle the real hard problem of suffering risks. And so there's like a background here, which is that people are really worried about AI. They're like, guys, it's moving really fast. Things are like 5 years ago, if you said this is all going to happen, they would be like, no way, we're going to have this powerful AI systems. And project of 5 to 10 years into the future, you don't know what's going to happen. So I make a claim that this is the way in which you actually have to think about the risks from interfaces. And I'm using the words like wholesome because by default what we have right now are fragmented, not fragmented interfaces, but fragmented people. So the users, the human beings who use these interfaces are fragmenting. And when I say fragmenting, like I'll give you an example, okay? So when I stay at night and I'm scrolling Instagram, I'm like, I should sleep, I'm tired. I will regret this when I wake up tomorrow. And then that part of me is like, no, but I just want to watch one more reel, or I want to read this article, or finish this episode. And then I end up sleeping late and I feel tired. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I hate my Aditya of yesterday night. He should not have done that. Or I eat something and I'm like, oh, pizza looks very tasty. Zomato recently told me, hey, did you know someone just canceled their order? Discounted price, you can just get this pizza to your home right now. And then don't waste food. It's not waste food. It's like someone canceled their order, it's not waste food. Take this option. All those interfaces are like they're designing it to make it easy for you to say, yes, I will eat some junk food. And then I eat it and my stomach will be like, you did not listen to me. So there's fragmentation here where I am not being considerate of my tongue is now overruling my stomach and my gut. My gut is like, I want more fiber. My tongue is like, no, I want more fats and protein or whatever. So the fragmentation can happen across time. This is a very important way of fragmentation where you don't end up having integrity. So integrity would be where you have alignment through speech, action, thoughts. You know what you're thinking, you know what you're saying, you know what you're doing. All of these things are aligned. They all are self-consistent. They are not betraying each other. So any interface that you design that promotes you to become more fragmented is bad in the real sense where you're seeing the consequences around you, where you don't have trust with yourself. You start feeling like I don't know, I have no willpower, I'm very weak. And that's a real danger that happens. That's the first aspect of wholesome. So when I say wholesome, I'm talking about being whole, being complete, not feeling like you are in pieces and you don't feel like, who am I? So many parts in your mind all fighting with each other and you keep having a lot of voices and you're like, do I want this, do I want that? Inner conflict, a lot of friction, a lot of lost energy. And that's my kind of point about wholesome, but I say wholesome now. Any questions as far as have you guys any experiences of facing interface and being like, oh yeah, this interface is really making me more fragmented, or some interface that you guys feel very, very wholesome or having integrity?
it's always like very fragmented in like when you're interoperating like the Apple ecosystem is integrated with itself, but like it's fragmented when you try to like
If you're within the
interoperability
Apple-
between manufacturers and providers, and yeah, that's the general sense I have of it.
So when you say that within Apple it is actually wholesome, you mean
Yeah.
it's easy to actually move within like from Apple TV to mobile iPad,
Something like that,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
What about you? Like, okay, what about fragmentation in sense of cutting you off from your friends? Like one thing about how we're talking to AI bots, and so these chat interfaces often fragment you by keeping you in isolation. They're like, don't go to your friends for intimacy, come to me. Don't trust your therapist, come to me. So there's fragmentation happening at the level of spatials, not just time. Like you become more and more individuated. You're not embedded in society. You don't have community anymore. You don't spend time going outside touching grass. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, but anything that's like addictive is a little bit fragmented.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe an example of non-fragmenting interface would be something that's very narrow and niche, like a good keyboard, a mechanical keyboard, only gives you tactile feedback. It does its task very well. It doesn't keep asking you to come back and use it. Whereas as a phone camera, it'll always be like, hey, do you want to take a photo of this food you're eating? There is a tendency of an addictiveness that you said, which kind of pulls you in and constantly makes you use it. So some interfaces are like a cancer sort of way where it's self-reinforcing. It doesn't try to like empower you and like exoskeleton you're wearing. Rather, it is independently having its own intrinsic motivations. Where the question of are you using the mobile phone or is the mobile phone using you? Like, are you always looking for a reason to use the mobile phone, or are you like intentionally using the mobile phone when you need to? That is the difference I'm trying to point to here.
Yeah, the main thing is like at this level, right? I think the interface like it's a little bit of a nudge, but the much bigger determinant of whether you tend to isolate or fragment is actually what your state of mind and personality and other things about the person is. Then
It's more fundamental. Right?
yeah. Like it's not that the interface doesn't have any effect.
But it's small effect.
It's a smaller effect.
So now this is a claim that we can now maybe zoom in on, because if you think of what is an interface, it's layers and layers of things. So is there anything fundamentally immutable to you that you can say, when you put the question of, okay, why did Aditya spend so much time on Instagram? You could say, yeah, he's actually bored right now, or he's distracting himself, escaping into this social media, whatever like that. But if you look into it and you decompose it, the one interface is the app interface, it's one level of blame. But you can now look at different interfaces you've made, like the practice he did using this interface for a lot of years, or the cultural influences where people around him are using Instagram and they're sharing information there. So interfaces are actually extremely powerful if you zoom out and look at all of the various interfaces you're using, not just one in isolation. If you use one in isolation, then it looks like, okay, yeah, it's a very small effect. But if you look at all of them, together they might be an extremely large effect on your decision making.
Yep.
Can I just add to that? Is an absence of an interface is also a reason why a certain your wholesomeness gets fragmented. When you take up the example of why he's using Instagram a lot and not interacting with real world people, there is an absence of interface here that is making the Instagram much more
There's a
accessible.
cultural interface that's missing.
It's a vacuum. It's an actual personal. Oh yeah.
So there is a disintegrity here that is fragmented, and that is the reason why these narrowed interfaces are able to capture you that quickly.
Right. Yeah, so very true. Yeah, the lack of having a properly designed interface with how it's very like, for example, public spaces. Before we used to have.
Or how to use a certain. There might be an interface, and you just don't know how to use it.
You haven't been made familiar
Yeah, you
with
haven't
it.
been socialized properly, or you don't know how to interact. It's easier, or there is a certain sense of safety in using these fragmented. So these can also be some inputs.
It's great, like eye contact, knowing where to go to. Like people come to me, they're like, I have no friends. I don't know how to make friends.
Consequences. I think
And
that is.
if I make a mistake, if I am creepy, someone's gonna hate me forever. I'm gonna be tabooed out. I can go to jail. All this paranoia, and you're feeling like the risks aren't worth it. I just stay and watch a movie. That's easier than all of this work. And for what? I just get humiliated. So like all of the consequences and the lack of a proper interface, like a pub before. In Kerala, we used to have these kind of third spaces, places where people would go and have chai, talk to each other in newspaper. My grandparents used to talk about things. And now, where do we have the kind of public square where we can actually hang out, like green spaces, parks? So those the absence of that can also be an extremely strong push towards the fragmentation. So wholesomeness matters a lot here. So I think that makes sense.
I think something about the modern world makes the fragmentation the default rather than the integrity can be, social media or like this hyper connection, but also like individual, like the loneliness, all of this, right? I think something about the modern world it makes the fragmentation the default. I think so. The interfaces also I think they somehow tend to.
I actually feel it's like a little bit of the opposite. There is more integration.
More so that compared to
compared to pre-internet is what I'm essentially thinking.
I think there is also a paradox when we talk about like the social media, that kind of interfaces versus like pre-internet. Earlier, a lot of these platforms started very fragmented. Like Instagram is only about photographs, Reddit is only about text posts, and but slowly every one of them is doing everything. So there is a lot of integrity back in the fragmented sections. That is a paradox.
So fractal nature of these
Yeah.
things, right? Yeah, because like internet, for example, is creating more connection. Like I couldn't talk to my friends in the US. I couldn't make friendships across the globe. And now it's possible to do video calls with people. Like my uncle when he left Kerala when he was young, let's send letters to his parents. Like if you didn't have the ability to communicate to your loved ones, you just visit them once in a few months. You're living far away. Phone calls are very expensive. So there's like a lot of sense in which you can say, hey, aren't we increasing integrity because of the connection? And that is where I think it's important to notice the body aspect, which is that we are now identifying a lot with our heads and being like, just because I can talk to someone, I am more connected to them. So what does connection really mean? What does it mean to have integrity? It doesn't necessarily mean just because you're able to call someone, you are now really entangled, you know what's going on with them. So a deeper level of integrity it needs to have like full blown, complete, embodied sort of sense of connection. Like I have often felt, even when we can talk to people, because of how we are constantly on our mobile phones, notifications coming in, interrupting us, we're not present in the moment. Like right now I'm talking to you all, I am trying to be here, and I'm not, and all of us are trying to be here instead of on a mobile phone, something like that. But a lot of other contexts, we sometimes tend to get people look at the phone all the time. And so there's a cost we have for this connection. Being plugged into the internet means that we are not actually plugged into reality where we are right now. And so we identify more and more with our ideas.
So there is something that came to my mind. I use LinkedIn quite like too much. Okay, so it's like a dictionary for me, like full of information, full of knowledge and all. For this, I might delay my badminton plan and might not even end up going there. So what do you say? Like, what do you call that? Fragmented or?
So when you say you're delaying, like, what do you mean by like you take time to think about it and actually make a decision?
No. So I'm like, okay, I'm like supposedly I came across some amazing articles or something very amazing. So I might like cancel my plan and not end up playing badminton, for example. So how do I take it? Like, is it fragmented, you call it, or because for me that is wholesome. That knowledge is wholesome.
I don't know the full context of your life, right? Like there's a lot of moving parts here when it comes to a personal decision, like maybe my decision to, like read some articles and make a decision. I think it's I'm not very sure, but I think it's more wholesome than fragmented because it is about listening to all of your parts. So usually when you're fragmented, what's happening is you're prioritizing without listening to anyone. It's okay to do whatever you want. The main thing is making sure that all the stakeholders involved get to say their part. So when you're fragmented, you're like, no, I know I really want to eat this or I want to do this. I'm scared. Fear is there. I have to get money. I can't imagine being unemployed. What if I get fired? So when you're driven from fear, when you're driven from insecurity and stuff like that, you end up picking a choice and sticking to it. Defending it, being defensive and being like, yes, this is it. I'm holding on to it, clinging to it. Whereas wholesomeness is often about letting go and being open. Being open-minded and being, okay, I will consider all my options, I will talk to everyone, I will see. And then if I want, I will choose that. You're not like picking any particular one.
Yeah, so this kind of reminds me, but I was thinking about this, like one of the words that you haven't used, or maybe you have used, I don't remember, is the motivation. Like all beings are approaching any tool or any sort of interface with some motivation. Which interface, good interfaces cannot give a fuck about. Like if they are, because their job is to provide a solution to whatever the problem that the user is facing, irrespective of whatever their backstory is. And because we remove the backstory completely when we are designing good interfaces, because we have to think of all beings as like, okay, they want to get this job done, and how can we make sure that they get this done as efficiently as possible? We ignore the backstory. We automatically do some sort of fragmentation there, because now like there is a whole backstory. Somebody is having a really tough time emotionally, and that's why they're approaching this tool, LinkedIn for example. Somebody is approaching it because they want to open their mind and expand their mind curiosity and blah blah, and that's why they're approaching their tool. The good interface will not give a shit about what their backstory is, what the motivation for reaching to this interface is, right? And so now the question is this fragmentation? Because in some sense the integrity wala interface will be like, okay, before you start using this, let's talk about why you are here, what brings you here, and all that kind of stuff. Is that a good design decision? I don't think so. I mean, like you'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm just using you. Why are you going therapy with me right now?
But if you're getting closer to soloware, this question matters more.
Yeah, if
Exactly.
soloware, yeah, so that's where we are heading now. But I'm
Yeah.
just saying that.
So in the past, the only way to scale was by abstracting. So the
Right.
only way to make a knife that everyone can use is to ignore the backstory.
Right.
Be like, I'm getting a good knife for everyone to just cut it. I don't want to think about whether you're gonna hurt yourself, make it safe for people or no.
Thumb
Just
size
focus
and
on making a
everything.
good knife, because then once you make a good design for a knife, we cannot scale it. Right? So you first produce a design for interface and then you scale. You produce and mass produce it. So the only way we knew how to automate and to scale was by generalizing. So when you word generalize, it's by using an invariant. So you have like something that's actually same no matter what the context is. So that is the old way of scaling. And like soloware comes in here, or solo software. Soloware, the word soloware means solo software. It's like a software made only for you, taking into consideration your own backstory, your motivations, your inabilities. So if you're like blind or I'm colorblind, actually I'm dyslexic. Oh, I actually talk very fast. And he's like, I don't know, I talk so fast. Slow down. So I can still talk very fast. And the AI will make sure, so this is where AI and all this stuff will come, because they're now in a really interesting regime where now it's possible to scale without needing to make it same. Before the only way to make it cookie cutter, like everywhere we had to have the same thing. But now it's possible to have like explain, oh, I want my interface to be designed like this, explain what you really care about, and then when it comes down to making the actual knife for each person, just in that moment, just in time, in that context, when Watson is like, I want to make a knife, the AI is able to pay attention to his context. Oh, he's going to now use it for cutting oranges. So we need to change the interface slightly, because we can't just blindly give him that copy of the design. We need to now make it appropriate for his context. And that is where the wholesomeness will be coming in, where you can now ensure that the tool does not try to impose its understanding. So the hostility or the numbness, the sensitivity numbness comes in here. The numbness is basically when you are not ignoring things. You are like, I don't care about your backstory. I'm ignoring important aspects that are critical to the use of the interface. So when you're using an interface for cutting the knife, it matters if you're cutting wood or if you're cutting oranges and stuff like that. So that there are some aspects which are important. And you can't think of everything. If you're trying to think of all possible combinations, it's too complicated to design interface. So if you're sensitive, then the sensitivity can come in at the point at which you're creating the interface for the person who's using it. So this is all connected together.
I would also like to give one particular example for an app which is designed for a general purpose that can also have some sort of integrity and wholesomeness. For example, like I use this app called Forest, wherein like you will plant a seed. I will set timer for 120 minutes or something. If I finish that 120 minutes, that seed turns into a tree and I will be given 40 coins. If I add 2000 coins, they will be planting a real tree.
Oh.
The app makers will be planting a real tree. So this app is a general app. Whoever wants to focus on their work, they can use this app. It's not very specific to a particular person. So I think the intention behind why a particular feature is there, that can make a thing integral to a person. I don't think it need to be tailor-made for you.
So you're saying that interface need to be tailor-made, can still be promoting wholesomeness and integrity as long as it is
Like there is a purpose for it and it's built with some sort of
good intention. Yeah. So that is true. So I think maybe I'm not saying that we need to like completely throw away well-designed, thoughtful apps where the person has made it with clear intention, is transparent about it. It's like, yeah, we are doing this, this is the thing, and there's still room for that. But I'm just saying that there is also room for this tailor-made interfaces that we currently don't have. We are still settling for the mass-produced interfaces. We are trusting Google and Facebook to create one platform for all of us. So tailor-making is one option that I'm trying to open up here with the designing. I'm not saying this is the future. Everyone should use this. That's what I'm saying.
My point was like general apps can also have some sense of wholesomeness and integrity.
Right, yeah. So, is there an example of not wholesome? This is an example of wholesome, right?
Yeah.
Do you have an example of not wholesome which you don't use or you?
Most of the apps are like that. This forest app is the exception.
But that is also because forest is so simple and
Yeah, exactly.
there is
Very
nothing
minimal.
else you can do, and nobody's watching if you're actually done productive. I've also used that even when I did not finish the entire
Yes, but-
Pomodoro. I was like, it's a plan, so might as well click on it. Nobody's like, no one's holding me accountable to it, right?
No, it's supposed to beat the phone addiction. Like people tend to take their phone and use when they are working, right? So
Yeah.
if you are in the tab and if you go out of the tab, the tree dies.
Yeah, so, you're only using it for phone. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
for
using
their
so the
purpose.
thing is I used it for other just as a Pomodoro timer.
So if phone's sitting there, you're doing something
Yeah,
else.
I'm doing so I'm not doing what I said. Instead of writing my paper, I'm dusting my bookshelf or whatever.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah, I don't want the tree to die, but I won't work. I will just let the timer die.
And sometimes that's causing fragmentation because now you can't trust yourself, right? Like you're saying
Yeah.
something and you're not following through on your actions. So you're fragmented. Yeah.
Because forest is made to increase our one thing is not touch our phone, another is to actually do the Pomodoro technique, get
Yeah.
your to-do list done, which did not happen.
But at least they're succeeding in the first part of their promise,
Yes.
which is not you don't use the phone and,
Yeah.
to this.
But the issue is the integrity aspect, which is that if you say I won't do it, you won't do it, and if you say I will do it, you will do it, and the more you do that kind of a thing, you practice building trust with yourself. You're like, yeah, I believe in myself. I've always been a person of my word, and the more you start betraying yourself, the more you feel like, okay, it's fine. It's pretty slow. I'll start
Yeah.
cheating.
You get used to
You get used to.
The motivation change. Instead of tackling my to-do list, now I'm like, I need my forest to grow, which is just
Yeah. True, that also happens.
yeah, I'm not spending my phone, but there are many things that can replace my phone too.
We should move.
Okay, so any questions on this slide, or we can move on? Okay. So now we'll go on to the current state of AI interfaces and how, I think you already talked a bunch about that right now, how ChatGPT exists, and the current ones are all chat based, where the interface is designed with it makes it very easy for us to project our sense of, oh, this must have goals, it is a person, and we start talking to it politely or we be rude to it. So the current state of AI interfaces, if I can maybe open it up on the computer. Do you have ChatGPT? Let's see what Gatsu is talking to ChatGPT about. We can open a private network.
Maybe that is something ChatGPT should introduce. Hide your chats.
They have silent mode also. Oh, fine.
Every one.
Okay, so this is like how we currently, most people, like 90% of people are currently using AI, right? So now we're talking about AI interface. Consider this. If you want to talk to it or type a message or wait for the AI to respond, just type something like, what is the best restaurant in Atinagar?
I think this is the third word, yeah.
Yeah, this is not.
Oh, it's not ChatGPT.
This is a platform which offers
Oh my
Gemini
God.
as well.
So they
Wow,
branding-
sponsored. They managed to
This is
beat.
this is the interface of Google
Yeah.
Ads.
You can see
No, but
the-
this is start page, right? I didn't expect it to do this.
There.
The first couple of them are all sponsored.
ChatGPT.com.
Bro, what you can do maybe is just log out of your
Right
actual
first.
ChatGPT
No,
account
no,
and
just
just
open income.
Not
Yeah,
right,
already
right.
forget the
Just go to
income
try.
track.
Huh?
You can click on try it first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Done.
So I think there are two aspects of this that I want to point out. Okay, one is the positive aspects, some are the negative aspects. A positive as in like there are ways in which this actually promotes you to now project. Now it asks you things like, can you scroll down? Gives you some recommendations and then says, oh, you tell your preferred cuisine, I will narrow it further and pick the best for you. You want me to suggest some options for you. It's a very conversational mode between you and the AI. Whereas, so it's distracting you from actually focusing on what task you're doing. So imagine doing a deep research. You want to actually now decide for a group of this many people, a number of people, distance, cost. There are factors of this which you are going to focus on. But now you're getting drawn away from that focus towards now talking to this chat GPT and like it's giving us, it's like, oh, focus on cuisine. It didn't focus on ambience, it didn't focus on if it's loud, maybe do you want to talk there. So there's a lot of contextual information here. When I'm planning to take you out for lunch, I am aware of the fact that, oh yeah, I really care about it being a quiet place so that we can all talk. I care about it being not too expensive because everyone should be able to afford it. I shouldn't be fancy. And now ChatGPT has no idea of all this stuff. And already my mind has been pulled instead of being present with the context and doing a good planning for which location to go to. What is happening here is that now I'm also talking to it. I'll be like, oh yeah, actually I would want to eat Indian. And now that's like distracting me from the task I'm doing. Does that make sense? And these issues also mean that we are artificially blocking the AI's abilities. Like AI systems don't need to can think much faster than us. But right now, every single time it's interrupting us. We're the one interrupting it and engaging this back and forth. And now it can't do anything unless I give it information. It's not doing anything in the background. If I had given like deep research, for example, which is another option, or can you open Canvas and then show the like?
I don't know if it's available here.
Oh, it's not available in this. So
Free version.
So there are things that the companies are doing, trying to alternatively explore different interfaces. But my claim here is that the problem with these interfaces is that it's still very centralized. It's still like, it's not really considering what's good for each of you. It's still thinking from their perspective of how can I get the individuals to come and spend more time talking to me, learn from me regarding my suggestions and things like that. So the main goal we're trying to do with our organization is that we're trying to do human-human connection via AI. So think of AI not as an independent agent, but rather like an infrastructural utility, something like electricity or internet. We're talking to someone on video call, we're not thinking about internet, we're thinking about the other person. We're focused on the other person and the internet makes it possible. The fan is running, the projector is working. In the background, the internet just makes it happen, or the internet just makes it happen. So what AI is somehow becoming foregrounded as something, like an entity that you're talking to. And that's like not the best because it creates power to be centralized in the hands of the person who has access to the agency. It's not like a utility that's being shared and spent. So there is a issue here of, so I think we can now move on to what are the possible AI interfaces that we're talking about, and maybe any questions about current AI interfaces maybe before we move on?
I mean, I'm curious about whether people have experienced some of these frustrations that you're
Yes.
sort of pointing at.
ChatGPT.
Yeah, can you talk
What
about
is the
So I was asking like I participated in some competition in which I wanted like video mein voice over. So it asked me thousands questions, 1,000 options it gave me, and each were like subscription based. So I have to subscribe, pay, etc. etc. Last time I got frustrated and I reached out to a friend that how am I supposed to do it.
Right.
There were thousands of options, but all subscription.
So
It wasted like 2 hours of mine.
So your time gets wasted and they're trying to push some
And
sort of
nothing
thing.
happened, like no output as such. Because
So even coders have found that you have to spend a lot of time wasting your time talking to it instead of actually doing the task you're focused on. So the distraction that can be for you. Great.
Also, I don't think ChatGPT right now is willing to link to the places on internet where it's not exactly legal, like Libgen, Anazark,
Yeah.
unless you prod it,
Yeah.
it will, like the prompt need to be very, very specific. So There's that. I mean, I can understand why they would do it from the
Right.
manufacturer perspective, but most free things are not exactly legal.
But that itself is like a big argument as to how far away we are from
but
actual.
that's a completely
Yeah,
separate
it is.
argument, but yeah.
Yeah.
Completely different argument from.
So like she's saying you're spending so much time talking to it,
Right.
which means that it's very very far away from that itself is like a big signal that
Right.
even though it's like it sounds like a human,
It's
you're
not
actually very far away from any kind
being
of.
any kind of a.
Yeah. Oh, sorry,
No, no,
I
makes
thought
sense.
that popped up. Yeah.
Any other experiences with AI that you feel like any interface issues that you've had while using?
I think like ChatGPT 5, I'm getting so much frustrated in the ChatGPT 5 thinking mode. I wanted to give it so much of context. I wanted to like get it quickly done. That's why I'm coming to ChatGPT. It is asking me so much of context and I feel like I don't know, like I felt like 4 hours much better than my thinking.
Interesting. Yeah. So like, it's not able to understand what you really
Yeah,
want. It's,
if I'm giving the same prompt in ChatGPT 5 in that thinking, and if I'm doing it also in Gemini 2.5 Pro, I felt like 2.5 Pro was much better.
ChatGPT voice mode on phone sucks. It's very choppy. It's horrible.
So latency issues are there. It's
Yeah,
not
there is
smooth.
a lot of lag in between. But on desktop, it works like magic. It's very smooth, but on phone, it's horrible.
But like when these are like logistic issues with the model. Have you ever seen it injecting its? Are you being influenced by it? Like if you go into it for like I'm saying I want to plan a restaurant, right? And I'm noticing that its questions are already biasing me towards certain way.
Oh, yeah.
So when you guys are using it for a task, do you come in with some awareness of I want to do A, B, C, D, and then after talking to it, do you feel like you endorse the way in which it takes you to a different direction, and you're like, okay, that's fine. I think I'm happy overall it happened, or you're like, no. Actually, in retrospect, that's a bit manipulative, or it is influencing me.
For me, that is when I was using the free version, and then when I started paying the $20.
Okay.
The free version chap 4 is it's not just sycophantic. It used to just meander in its thought process and like suggesting things that I did not ask for at all. Lot of time was getting wasted. But since they have my money now, they are much more. They're sticking to what I'm exactly
Oh,
asking.
actually giving you value.
Yeah, it's the same model, not much difference, but the same 4.0 or 5 was giving me a kind of precision that was absolutely absent in the free version. So,
And I recently felt that a paperclip problem, like Vatsal was explaining me the other day what paperclip problem is. Like I was asking ChatGPT about certain supplements, like I was planning of taking certain magnesium glycinate, and I was trying to understand how it works. So it's stuck with that. My aim is for clarity and focus. And when I asked it, like, can I take a multivitamin? It said, no, you shouldn't take that. So it was influencing me. I was planning to buy a multivitamin and I was trying to get it done with just one pill. But then it was segregating and it was saying that you go for magnesium glycinate, you go for creatine monohydrate. It wasn't letting me to go with one
One
norm,
simple
yeah.
solution. It's complicating things,
Yeah, yeah,
making it
yeah.
more and more overthinking
Yeah.
in some ways.
Yeah, there's something about it taking a lot of time. It changed the way of working for me. So
Right.
earlier, I used to use O3 a lot. So it used to take like 20-30 seconds. So like I have a complicated either like coding thing or like debugging or I'm like brainstorming on something. I click enter and thoughts are like okay, I just asked this and then something is like going on. 30 seconds I get an answer and then it continues right. So 5 thinking it can take 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. So when it takes 2 minutes, it's very easy for me to like get lost and then check my phone or tend to some other thing, open other tab. It's very easy for me to like do that thing where going away from the thing, but that's very like fragmented where I lost the context already. So I have to be like very intentional about okay, don't do anything. Okay, it's taking time, but okay, you know what? Like in your mind, you continue the chain of thought. What kind of answers it can give, and like, how do you wanna like adding more things. Oh, maybe I should have said this also. Some details are out. So I have to be like very intentional with myself to take that minute and two, like to organize thoughts. Then I can, in interact with the response in a better way. But that delay sometimes especially when I'm not in the mindfulness, it's very easy for me to like just get distracted with like some other thing and
And you lose the train of thought.
yeah, which is not as good. Sometimes that's
It's easier for people to get fragmented when they are when there's a huge delay between the prompt being presented and the response coming from ChatGPT. The thinking is active, for instance. There's a delay, right? And that allows for more fragmentation.
It also sounds like you're trying very hard to extract, how do I respond to this agent? You're trying very hard to like prompt engineer and get the answer you want from this rather than focusing on what it actually trying to do. So there's like a lot of energy being lost in like, I have to make this intern work for me. And this intern is not really, I don't know, it's like lying to him sometimes he's like not paying any money. He's even a human being. There's a relationship that is now coming in where before you could just do your coding, you are now introducing a new agent there.
But the point is that if he will become more fragmented if he is not being mindful while using the tool, right? Because the thing after a minute will take him in some directions, it will like guide him in some, there'll be some bias introduced in the response and he won't be able to detect the biases as well because he was distracted.
Some other task.
Yeah, in that time when he was not getting the response,
Yes,
quickly got distracted. Right?
One concrete example I can give is I get a lot of value out of like 5 to 10 turns of conversation where it goes like 5 to 10 turns because I've refined my thinking and I've thought of like what's missing and all of that. But if I have to go 10 steps and those 10 steps are taking 2 minutes in between, I won't go 10 steps because it doesn't. So that's what if I have a concrete problem, what I do is I start with the really fast one and then have like some like
Go broad, and then
go
once you reach
broad and then I know what I need to focus on. That's when I go to the thinking mode where I have the context, I note it on some things.
Then you can
And
spend
then-
some time and actually flush it out.
And that is the issue, and what he's pointing at is, I think, unwholesome interface in some sense. The wholesome interface will not allow me to open a new tab and start reading some Wikipedia page or Instagram reel or whatever, while waiting for the notification to come, your response is ready. Right?
Correct.
Wholesome interface will be like live, like talking to a human almost,
Yeah.
where my attention is fully with the agent who I'm interacting with. I think that's what the.
But I have a question. When suppose it is not AI but a human that we are posed this question and they are taking time to think, what are we doing then? Aren't we? Is it because it's the machine interface that we feel okay to step away and do other things than like politely sit in their company?
I have like similar thoughts because when I use O3 high thinking mode, what I tend to do is I subconsciously I tend to like compete with it and I see how good will its research be versus mine. So it's not like I'm getting distracted. It's giving me time to think while it's thinking with me. So I get two answers and I can compare and I can collate them together and reach a consensus. So I find the longer it thinks, the better it is for me. Let it think for 15 minutes. In fact, I'm waiting for the day that they'll think for multiple days or weeks. That would be ideal. So in that case, you could solve really
Yeah, for
complex
me,
issues.
it was easy to do this with O3 because there's 30 seconds, 40 seconds.
Yeah.
Like okay, I'm like organizing or I'm expecting some response. I see it and then I quickly compare my mental notes with the response.
Right, yes.
But the 2-minute thing with the GPT, I also want to point out that I value the 2-minute thinking because it does a lot of thorough research
Yes, and you
links
can
to
go
other
through
things.
its course as well and see that what its reasoning traces are and compare with yours and then refine yours or refine its course, vice versa. And you mentioned that if it is letting you escape from the chat tab and watch Instagram reels or something, that's potentially unwholesome. I would contest and I would say that it should be wholesome because it, like I said, it lets you do independent research alongside it versus you wasting your time staring at a screen.
Yeah,
Looking
independent
at it.
research, if it was relevant to the question that I've asked, then yes. But I was using an example where I went and started like going through Twitter and all that. Like it doesn't control how I do what I do with the
Okay.
browser, right? So I'm
Yes.
doing in that sense unwholesome. Like it's not aware of the larger context of my browser tabs.
Okay.
And I went to the distraction website sort of a thing.
Yeah,
That makes
it's
sense.
different when it's just exploratory versus.
Fragmented part of the other interfaces that are interfering here. Like you're going to Twitter and Instagram because
Yeah, so like the
Yeah.
interface is much bigger now.
We are expecting
But that is what this is
Ah.
about.
Yeah.
Like I mean,
Then I
that's the
suppose
goal,
the
right?
interface is at the operating system level then.
Yeah, so we are
That's
looking
how
at
it's
the whole
pulling you
IoT
into a
of things.
different state of mind. That's why it's distracting you from doing the task, right? Even if you're sitting with a human being, if your phone like a notification, someone calls you, you can even get pulled into that also. Some people we get distracted. It's not even with other human beings, we are struggling to stay present
See,
with.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a little bit. We should move because it
Time.
becomes more complicated.
Yeah, I think we cannot understand interface so far, but I think now it's time to kind of zoom out a little bit and connect to some of the what is the how is society reacting to this problem, right? Like I want to use this graph to try and give you guys a picture of where is the landscape looking like. Maybe you guys don't know about the different perspectives and ideas in the space. So the one good way to think about this is that the y-axis, there are people who are like really aspirational, who are like looking at the future and then thinking about the positives that can happen. They're like, wow, there's so many opportunities here. We can have post-abundance, you know, like, oh, look at how far we have come. We have free food. Food is very cheap. We have like so many opportunities, so many jobs. You can travel from here to USA, and so aspirational people, they love technology. They're really like, they're like, okay, things are going well. Progress is happening. Less children are dying, and so they're aspirational people. There are people who are critical, who are like, actually, are we actually making progress? Like people are unhappy, mental health issues are rising. You know, we are not taking care of our parents. We are feeling more and more like I have to get a job in order to survive. Like before, if you're a slave, at least they give you food and stay. Now with the salary we are getting, we can't even pay for rent and like food. All the money goes off, no savings, and then inflation keeps hitting us. So there are people who are like inequality is rising. There are some people who are really happy, but most people are like struggling. Farmer suicide. So there are people who can point to a lot of the issues in society right now and be like, we are not in a good place. We're going to a worse place. We should be very careful. And this is an axis on how much. It's not like one single thing. You can have parts of you which agree with this, parts of which agree with this, but that's like one axis that I really want to point towards how critical, how doomer you are, and how utopic you are thinking about. And the x-axis is basically talking about how empirical you are, empirically reactive. Like, are you really present with today's issues? You're like, okay, I'm a teacher. I see what's happening with the students. I am actually working in the company, and my teammate was fired because like our team got made smaller and more efficient now. So people are really looking at the data today and it's like reacting to that. Like, oh, will I get what's going to happen in the world? And it's like near mode. I use the word near mode because we're looking at the present, right? And the future projectum is more like you now look at the data of today and yesterday and last few years, and you try to figure out a theory. Like you extrapolate to the future. You're like, what is the best story, a best explanation for what happened so far, and how can I extrapolate to the future? What is going to happen in the future? And oftentimes it looks like we're projecting our own fears and understanding onto this question. If you ask someone what's going to happen to your job in a few years, some people who are very much like, I believe in myself, will be like, yes, I have a job. And people who are really scared will say, no, I'm really scared, I'm going to lose my job. So this axis is basically about how you are projecting, how far into the future. People who might be constantly worrying might be people who keep living in the future or living in the past. Instead of staying in the present, they might be like, oh yeah, I'm panicking about what will happen in the next 5 years, next tomorrow. They never think about the future that much. So this is also like a spectrum, and it's a useful way to think about our relation to AI. As a species, the different groups of people have been dealing with AI. So any questions about the classifications? Okay. So now I'll go through one by one what people are saying, right? So there are people like Elon Musk and Sam Altman who are like, this is great, let's just start building quickly, release products. AI will actually solve problems. They'll solve cancer, they will fix climate change, they'll help us be more powerful. They're really going more in the side of like, focused on the positive outcomes that they believe will happen, and then trying to reverse engineer and backchain and be like, what should we do today in order to make it possible? So that will look like building more power plants, trying to get more energy and GPUs in order to build that. And there are people who also look to the future and are like, we're going to die, we're going to have a lot of problems, so let's just not build it. So they look to the future and they reverse engineer and they're like, what should we do now to prevent the bad thing from happening? And those are the Yudkowsky, Miri kind of folks, or people from X-Risk who are like, less wrong also has a lot of people who believe in that. And they are the ones who are like called doomers and pessimists about this. And then there is people who are in the near mode risks. And these are the folks who are more like near-term risks. They're like, We have surveillance issues. China is monitoring everyone. We have UK government putting people in jail for posting a bad thing. So the more and more the government starts accessing financial data, UPI, whatever, you have issues with discrimination. All the data that is based on Western data, English, we don't have our native languages in the data sets. So we have issues with ChatGPT will answer everything from a Western point of view and reinforce those biases. All the data in the internet is going to be more and more AI generated. So we can talk about current issues with models, misinformation, hallucinations, people becoming more and more crippled. Like if you use a car to go everywhere, you won't use your body. You become more and more weak. The same way your mind, you stop using calculators. Like my parents used to be able to remember phone numbers and things like that, and now we don't remember anyone's number or address. Like I remember back then we didn't have Google Maps. We used to actually remember the route and we used to ask people directions, and everyone knew everywhere else. Now I travel and I ask people where is the shop. The person whose shop is here doesn't know where the other shop is. Like they have no idea of where anything is. They're like, I wake up, I go to my office, I come back, I don't know what anything is going on. Like completely, this is happening right now, right? So that is like really worried about the problems right now and trying to fix that. And this is where we have the near mode opportunity, which is like, oh, what are the new opportunities that are possible because of AI? Just like how there are new threats and new risks. Let's consider that. And ideally, we need a mix of all this, right? We shouldn't be only in one box. We should understand that there are problems in the long term, there are problems in the good things in the long term, there are problems right now and good things right now. And what I'm trying to say with this talk is that the design aspects, the UI, UX, designing interfaces, comes there, where we are highly underestimating the potential of AI in designing really novel interfaces, and it will really change how we deal with technology. Our relationship with technology will be influenced by interfaces. And while doing that, we should be considerate of all other three things also. But I will be mostly focusing on this side of the quadrant now. Maybe trying to contrast it to these sides and explain why I think we have a lot of tech people on those sides trying to build the technology fast or trying to prevent it. And some academic people are there on this side who are like writing papers in journals and being like, oh, this is a problem, but they're not really building much. They're just like trying to regulate things more. So most builders are on the aspirational far side, and the people who are critical often tend to be the ones stopping building, trying to slow things down. So we're trying to build but for good, and while keeping in understanding the other sides also. So any questions so far?
Really like the 4 axis. I think
Great access, right?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
you
So do I.
mean in near mode risks are like people not building, just stopping, but we would rather want somebody who's also building the safeguards. So far mode utopia is not off the race, is what you're implying.
Correct. So near mode risks, again, it's all like a straw man and stuff. So people are building stuff against the risks, understanding the risks. But then when you have, so I'll come to actually next question, and that's next thing I'm talking about. Attention is self-fulfilling. Like if you are building something from a perspective of fear, it's like example I often use is imagine you're very worried about gender inequality, and you constantly talk about, oh, are you a man, are you a woman, and I will constantly try to equalize everything. It makes you more and more remembering that, oh, I'm a woman now. I feel suddenly like seen. Or if I say your skin color is kind of black, or your skin color is white, let's make everyone make sure take care of the right skin color. We should talk about equity and equality, but the way in which you do it, emphasizing that can actually make it more real for people who are of a brown skin color or a black skin color and feel like, actually I want to ideally reach a point where we are not considering these things. I want to be really treated equally. So the issue with attention and self-fulfilling is that people who are building, thinking about the risks, can sometimes end up causing those risks to become even harder. And that's a problem with the self-fulfilling prophecy, where if you keep worrying about will this person cheat on me, will this person steal my stuff, and you treat him like a criminal, then you're actually looking for and other person notices how you're behaving towards other person. There's a tendency towards that. When I say they're building, the far more utopia folks are not living in the present. They're like this is real, but they're okay with the the trade-offs. They're like, yeah, sure, we will maybe have some extreme people addicted to ChatGPT or whatever, fancy, but these people are fine. Eventually it's fine because we are going to now reach a place where we have technology like nuclear reactors everywhere. So they're considering the benefits to be good enough that eventually we'll solve these problems, but let us go a little bit faster. So that's the kind of difference between farmer and airport. Does that make sense? Or
Basically, these people are the ones who are giving us a reality check.
But yeah, and if you talk to everyone, no one is in one box completely, right? Like even the people who are like doomers will be like, yes, currently we have these issues, but or we have these opportunities. They agree with all this. And they're like, but eventually you will end up dying. They're like, no matter how you do it, we are going towards death.
Yeah.
So don't do it.
Yeah.
They're like, trying to focus on these things are a waste of time. Same way the people who believe in utopia are like, whatever you are saying is correct, but it's not relevant because in the scale of once AI becomes Einstein, then we have like 100,000 Einsteins in the computer. Imagine all your planning and all the interfaces you build today now will be useless. Like whatever human beings can build with our puny monkey brains, it's like asking chimpanzees to plan something. They're like, no, humans are coming, bro. Like imagine you're a tribe of chimpanzees and you're thinking about building human beings, and humans are going to build technology and stuff. So the chimpanzee is like, bro, we're going to be breaking into space, we're going to be building ships and flights and stuff like that. Stop worrying about all these monkey talk and start planning for the world of post-scarcity. So they're very far more thinking. And but what I'm trying to say at least is that it is very important how we go from the transition period. Like we're not magically jump and become like gods. Like it really matters what happens in the next 5 months, 2 years, 3 months. The exact trajectory you take will affect where we end up. Both of these are possible. They're not like impossible or not possible. But where we end up will depend on how we treat ourselves, our friends, our technology today. So the intermediate period is what we are concerned about, the near-term period where we have to make sure that we don't end up walking into that period with people addicted to AI chatbots.
But I think that there will be convergent points. I mean, that's where my intuition, like whatever happens today, if somebody finds if we're going in the wrong direction, somebody at some point will say we're going in the wrong direction. Why don't we try this? And then immediately everybody will switch to that. And I mean not immediately, but
there will be some. So
Yeah.
what's happening in this room today is part of that. Like in the world is not separate from us, right? Like the immune system of the earth is us. Like
Is
people
us.
having these like when you say someone will do it, it doesn't have to be someone. It could be us.
It could be us.
But maybe it's not. Maybe someone else. But like I agree with you. But being optimistic and being lazy is not an answer. Like being like it'll happen, no need to worry. That's also like not taking action, being passive.
Agreed.
Ideally, we should also be like, what is my duty here? Maybe my duty is not to involve in this. Maybe your duty is not to be part of the AI change or anything. You can be like, but someone will feel like called to do it. They'll be like, I'm not happy with how things are done, and I want to offer an alternative. And then you could be the one that's actually shifting things.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay, completely. I also agree with you. Like that's why I was like more in the doomer side before, and I kind of jumped here. That was my journey. I still have friends in that corner, and I've always made friends in other corners also because I like making friends. So I have friends everywhere. This side was also, I had friends everywhere. But yeah, this is like my current position. If you know me for like a few years, you'll know I keep moving around. I have changed a lot over the period of time. No, I don't think I am.
One week back you spoke about death. Probably you're going to end at all
But I think that conversation was about like facing the fact that it's all impermanent, right? Like death is something that we all can run away from because we think about it being scary. So different.
Okay.
We can talk about it during after 6 today. I'll happy to talk about Zen Buddhism and impermanence and how those things also affect our clinging on to some sort of outcome. But any questions?
We should
go. Okay. So the main aspect here that I want to talk about is that what is the problem with the other issues, what other parts, and why I think what's happening right now is interfaces are shaping our relationship to AI. So my point here is again that the way we deal with how we integrate AI into our world, right? Like right now, some people they don't use AI much, and it's going to be their first steps into this world of AI. And by default, all they hear is, okay, ChatGPT is there, I'll talk to it. And that's the only way that we know how to interact. And all of us are now used to developing our skill sets in knowing how to prompt ChatGPT in a very nice way, using thinking. And we heard Manohar talk about how he has found these kind of skill sets where, okay, first start with fast model, then go to slow model. And the more we get entrenched in these systems, the harder it will be to undo these problems. So we are at the point right now where we can shape our relationship with this technology, just like how we had a chance with how we dealt with internet. When internet was first being made, people had a lot of hopes. When blockchain was first being made, we had a lot of hopes. And throughout time, we see which coins are being used. Is Bitcoin being used as a currency or being used as an asset for speculation? Is Ethereum's gas fees too high? But over time, people keep working on these things. I'm not saying none of these things are like we have messed up for now and we're done. internet also, we have initially people were really worried making really good GUIs and ways of interacting. Websites are beautiful. Everyone had their own personal website which had like their own personality out there. So my point here is that we really need to think about interfaces, and the goal here is to have participative human in the loop. So the idea is making sure that humans remain in the loop. Right now, most of these interfaces are like we're trying to be lazy and be like, I'll just say what I want and you do it. Yeah, I don't want to think about too much. I am not going to participate in the activity because I don't want to do this. I don't want to actually think about which restaurant to go to. If I was actually planning something for all of us, if I really cared about you guys, I'll be like, I care about you guys, I really want to pick a good restaurant and I'm involved in the process, but I don't want to think about Googling everyone's name. So there are some aspects of the search I don't like to do. So I can focus on the aspects that I do care about, and I can automate those parts I don't care about. But there's still Aditya involved. Aditya is still involved in how I'm taking the decision. So that is the idea of keeping humans in the loop versus like disempowering me and removing me from the entire thing. Like the AI decides where we eat, where we go, all of those things. So the more we do things we don't really care about, the more we end up with situations where we're looking for ways to escape that work. We think of it as work. So that's the idea. And then another thing is decentralized, which I think some people in the crypto community or some near adjacent Web3 and stuff will understand that a centralization, when I say centralized, I mean if you're having one single protocol, what ends up happening is that we are all adapting to it. Like because we have a single charging point and I'm using my laptop, I have to go find a place to sit there. I have to think about everything in terms of the machine because I can't let it change to me, I change to it. So most of the people in this room are cyborgs. Like you go to your village and stuff, they're living life according to the nature and weather and their lifestyle. But we are living in according to the time zone of USA maybe, or we're trying to like use internet. Like most of our lifestyle choices of what we eat, whether we go out, we order inside food, we don't cook food. All of our choices on how we eat, how we sleep, what we wear, everything is informed by trying to fit the centralized model. So the idea of decentralization is to give everyone the ability to remember when do I want to sleep, what do I want to eat, how do I want to live, and be true to that. Because we no longer need to in order to cooperate, in order to scale, the only way before was to centralize. And now it's possible to scale without needing to centralize.
So soloware again.
Soloware again. So this is why soloware again comes in. Okay? How much time? What is your time?
We have 20 minutes.
20 minutes left. Okay, any questions here?
I just want to like point out that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
There was this things made sense to me after like like neuroscience and also some experiences like mindfulness and Jungian shadow and all of that, right? So the self-fulfilling prophecy, how attention works, right? Our fundamental nature of brains. So it made me realize that basically when people talk about manifestation, how it works, how it how it actually works, and also when people talk about in stories also, right, fictional stories, like heroes who try to avoid doing something, they become that sort of thing. All of a lot of myths and all of that, they have that self-fulfilling prophecy.
But you're saying you understood. Can you explain to the group like what is it like? Why do you think it makes sense to you? How does it work?
Yeah,
What's the answer?
I think the attention mechanism, just how our brains work, right? What we focus on, what we don't focus on, our conscious awareness, our unconscious awareness, right? They keep changing. So, like when someone does the manifestation exercise, right, when they're constantly reminding themselves of what they want to happen, right? So they're bringing things into the conscious awareness, which actually changes their behavior and orients them in a way which makes it happen. So in the same way, like the dark patterns or like the doomer argument, right? When if you're constantly focusing on the doomer arguments, that's what's in your conscious awareness. That can sort of make you act in a way which
Yeah. Okay. I understand your point. The way I explain it is often that, like when you're looking at the world, you are seeing the world and you're making these categories. You are trying to pay attention to and discerning difference between, okay, this is a human being here, this is a cushion here. The way you carve up reality into pieces, you can say this is a threat, this is actually a good thing. So that exactly is how you now look at everything, and your actions now reinforce those distinctions. You'll end up picking up a cushion. You'll end up making sure that the world is accessible. So the interface between you and the world will be decided by how you decide to carve up the world. So That is what in philosophy they call ontology, or like what exists. So there's actually a real way in which we have to be very careful how what we pay attention to and what interfaces we use. And so the naive way of being like, oh, if I worry about something, I won't get affected by it, is not actually true. If you worry about falling sick, or you worry about stumbling and falling, and all this worry by itself is actually not really as useful as even hope. The goal should be to like be present with what actually is and be open to being proven wrong. So that is kind of what I'm trying to say with attention is self-fulfilling. But yeah, it's a little bit more philosophical and meta, and you have to experience it yourself to maybe understand it more. Any questions so far? Okay, so now I'll just go through some of the design principles that we are kind of focused on and what we think. So what is special? When I still ask you guys to design your own interfaces. So later we'll be now going through an activity. We'll try to get each of you to think of what soloware would you want to build for yourself. And before we reach there, I want to walk us through what I think you haven't thought about, which is now possible. Because when you're thinking of designing a knife for yourself or a chair for yourself, you're used to sitting in a chair like this. So your mind will automatically go to these kind of chairs. So in order to break out of that idea, you need to remember that for most of our life, human beings have taken a lot of time to change their paradigms. Like they say that every time people don't change their minds, they die, and new people come to occupy their place. That's the only way people have actually changed their minds. For example, Gutenberg printing press came, and it was possible to make, but it's still handwritten. Like the shape of the book and everything was in the form of how it used to be when it was handwritten. And after we had iPads and stuff like that, we had VR headsets. A lot of the interfaces for how we consume information, like the journal publications, are still like 2-page format, and like it's not really taken into consideration that we now have ability to now use interactive technology. We can actually use a graph, change the values. So it takes a lot of time for interactive stuff to come into our mainstream world. So now these are some of the main stuff that we are worried about and thinking about when we are designing interfaces. It is give you an idea so that you can design for yourself. When I design, I'll help you through the design process, but for now let's talk about the design principles. So one of the first things I'm talking about is called wish-based, or automating away logistical concerns, formal rigid structures. So when I say this, what I'm trying to say is that by default, your focus is on, okay, I need to now do something, let me talk to ChatGPT, me and ChatGPT are talking, and I want to now focus on that problem solving mode. It's like collaboration, right? Like you are now working with ChatGPT to solve a problem. And instead of like, so first step is talking to ChatGPT and discussing. Second step is maybe Canvas or Copilot, where you have some apps like Cursor, which, how many of you guys have heard of Cursor by any chance? Okay, some of you have heard of it. For those who haven't heard of it, it's like an app which you can focus on. Coding is an activity where you write software code, and instead of always chatting with the model will be there in a tab here. You can, if you want, talk to it. Otherwise, you can select what code you want to write. You can click tab. So your focus is all often on the coding, and there's a canvas of sorts where for writing or for writing code, it will be like a dynamic interface which kind of lets the AI move to the side rather than in front of you. So one option is you talk to the AI directly. Another option is AI is on your side and you focus on coding or you focus on writing. And this is the two main interface options we have right now. But when I say wish-based, I am talking about annotation. So right now recording is happening, right? Now imagine the recording is tracking my voice, is tracking my body gestures, and in some sense, this recording is a channel through time. Tomorrow, I will be processing this my AI. My local AI will be watching the entire video. Day after tomorrow, 1 month later, it will be watching. So you guys don't have any attention and time to watch this video. You have other things to do. We have limited attention. But AI we can have 100 versions of the AI watching all of my videos every single day and then checking. So every day morning, my AI can actually go back, listen to all my recordings and check, is anything relevant to today's work for Aditya? Aditya's meeting today with ABC. And maybe I should remind him that he talked to Manohar about this topic. So understand it's now possible for this to happen now. We are living in this world. It's not that impossible now. So I can now leave a wish here. I can be like, hey AI, you are watching this. Like if you process this information, send a reminder to Aditya immediately, telling him to say hi to Manohar. This is like a command, but Siri can do this. We can always put commands and stuff like that. The hard part here is I am now distracting myself from the flow of the conversation. I'm talking to you guys. I shouldn't have to like completely break the flow and then talk to the AI. which is again antagonizing it, and actually something exists here, which is listening to me.
Storage is low on the mobile.
Storage is low on the mobile.
Oh, okay.
Storage is low on the tab.
Nice.
Can you just like